I'm seeing so much confusion and disorientation about what self-love is, and people not getting this idea. And I know they're confused because on one hand, I know what self-love is. I know. And it took me a while. But on the other hand, I see people reading all the self-help books and reading all the quotes and trying to self-care. And I speak with them, maybe people like yourself, people like my clients and people on this self-love journey. And their way of understanding this is not matching. It's like there is a big gap in understanding. They simply see it through a different perspective. And I was a little bit baffled by this, but then I was thinking, hold on. I have to retrace my own steps to understand where this misunderstanding comes from. Well, the misunderstanding comes from, as I was able to look at my older self who did misunderstand this, from two things. First of the things is the wrong idea of love itself in general. Is the wrong idea that you may have about love that is often confused with your current style of attachment. This is really important because the love that you have for yourself is going to be very similar, if not identical, way of relating to yourself as you have for other people and as you have to the world at large. Why am I saying this? It is because you don't exist in a void. You need to understand yourself and discover yourself in the context of everything else. And the good thing about this is once you inspect your ways of relating across the board, you will have easier time of understanding what is missing in your relation to yourself. But I do understand many of you have very confused styles of attachment, and they have been created in your childhood, in your first relationships. So how you were treated, how people were relating to you, if they were able to accept you fully. This, by extension, you started mirroring in your relationship to yourself. You were too little to be able to differentiate that their problems are their problems. They have nothing to do with your worth and with your inherent value as a human being. If you've noticed you had maybe some codependent tendencies with other people, you will have the same tendency with yourself, like maybe trying to control yourself a lot because you don't trust certain evolution of your identity. You want to make yourself perfect and predictable because, of course, codependency comes from lack of safety in a childhood. And the same thing will extend to your relating to the world in the way that you might be over-planning, overdoing, overthinking, being very anxious about how you can control the circumstances, and that will impact again in turn on you because you will force yourself to act on those fears you have with the world. Okay guys, I'm making this video way more richer than I planned to do, but it's good. You will just get more insight. And based on this, what I just said, you can explore what kind of patterns in your relating are existent in both your concept of yourself, in you relating to yourself, how much you allow yourself to play. Do you allow your identity to unfold? Do you allow yourself to be imperfect? Do you have patience for yourself and forgive yourself the mistakes? Do you have the same trust in the world? Do you have trust that without you pushing, planning, overdoing, something good would happen to you? And the same with other people. Do you have to make sure that they do everything? Do you have to make sure, like, tell them exactly what to do and micromanage so that they come and fill your needs, they meet your needs? It's all going to be existent throughout all those relationships, and you can think about any other traits you have and see how the pattern will be existing in those all different ways of relating. And this is great, this is really cool, because if you have any blind spots about yourself, all you have to do is look at how you relate to others, is look at what you do, so that you understand your relationship with yourself a little bit more and deepen and see where you can let yourself be more. And I spoke about some of the ways of collecting those lost pieces of yourself in my previous video in definition of self-love. But for now, I'm just going to leave you to knowing that there are those different aspects in you that sometimes are contradicting and sometimes are all over the place, but in the process, in the journey of self-love, you can become whole again. It's important to mention that you can't say that you love yourself without having healed your way of relating to others. And only then you will be able to see how your relationship to yourself is changing for the better. The second reason people misunderstand self-love, and love to some extent as well, is confusing love for a feeling. That's a good one because, well, let's put it this way. We have all been inundated with films and books about passionate and explosive love, and especially the aspect of falling in love. But you know, that pull and push dynamic of passionate, dramatic, and kind of, full of ups and downs is also being fed to us in other relationships, not only in those falling in love moments that we see in films and books, but in family as well, which again is based on those unhealthy attachments that I just spoke about. And because we confuse the feeling of that, like literally physiology, that you can feel that acceleration, those fireworks, when someone really adores you, when someone says something really nice, and then, sometimes they maybe not treat you very well, but that explosive, that passionate feeling that you can feel all over your body. And actually mistaking this for what love really is, which is a state of being, is displayed more in kind of extended loving relationship, those more consistent ways of giving love. Because actually a deeper state of love is not the love that we crave, not the love that we wait, not the compliments that we are seeking to get, but is the feeling when you give love to another person. I'm not sure if you are able to recall right now how you felt when you were there for someone, and that felt really good for you to simply show up. And how does giving love looks like in those relationships? Well, It looks like holding someone's hand when they suffer. It's comforting them when they are upset or sad. It is giving them reassurance in their value, is letting them know that they are enough. It is also being with them when something good happens, right? Because we all want to share good events with others. But if you were not shown how to do this, you might easily brush off any good things, any achievement as kind of like, it's not even such a big deal. But this is what we would do for another person, to encourage them to celebrate and have a good time, and saying, yeah, you did so well. You did so good in that situation. And at the same time, giving love is by encouraging the other person to rest, recover, take care of themselves, take care of their health, to know the balance and moderation, and to set boundaries. And if you take all these beautiful ways we are oftentimes used to giving love to others, we are able to see how little of that we give to ourselves. And the beauty of this is that once you start showing up for yourself in that way, you forget about the feeling for the moment, the acceleration, how that self-love feels like, but focus on giving yourself love through the deeds, through the actions, showing, not telling. This is the real love. That's why I had to bring up all the toxic ways of loving, because oftentimes the thing is, people say one thing, but they do a completely different. And that's why we have a confused idea of what love is. And for the same reason, when you start giving those deeds of love to yourself, when you encourage yourself to rest, when you are with yourself during the times of suffering or sadness, and you simply are embracing yourself in that moment, then it's inevitable that you are also on the receiving end, because this is the relationship yours with yourself. And no, when I talk about deeds, I don't mean more bubble baths and more fluffy blankets, which, by the way, are great. But the deeds that I mean is doing the hard shit for yourself, which can look like putting up boundaries where you never did put them, and that feels excruciating, that. Or maybe that is letting go of a job that pays well but doesn't feel good. Or it is letting go of a friend that doesn't show up for appointments, perhaps, and doesn't show consideration for your time. It is doing all the hard things that maybe you even invested in having in your life, but now you have to let them go as a way of doing the deed for yourself, where you're showing yourself that you respect yourself, that you take priority, and that you can do all the hard things to yourself as no one ever in your life did for you. It's doing all the things like encouragement, holding your hand, unconditional presence, and those hard things that probably people didn't do for you. And these acts, these deeds, are part of cultivating self-love. So, in effect, without focusing on how you would feel, by the sole way of making the deeds for yourself, you will start feeling that compassionate embrace of love in your own life, you will grow your own security, the sense of safety, the sense of confidence, the sense of self-esteem that sometimes we seek in other relationships to make us feel better about ourselves. But when you consistently show up, whether that's hard or easy, and you constantly show up for yourself, and even if you don't show up, you don't judge yourself for not showing up. That's another way you can embrace yourself, to release that resistance to some feelings, release the judgment. And over time, you are becoming more of a whole person. Like I spoke in the other video about picking up the pieces of yourself, you are able to see yourself, like different aspects of yourself, in as perfectly fine at this point, because you have held yourself when you fell down, you have encouraged yourself, and you have tolerated and accepted and didn't judge. And over time, you build that empowerment in yourself, that self-trust. I'm getting back to the word validation. I will speak more about this, but validation is the way of you validating how you feel. Imagine, what are you seeking in relationships when you are confused? Well, oftentimes what we are looking for first is the unconditional presence, right? Is someone to simply be with us. We don't even seek so much for advice. If someone tells you, you know what to do, you got this, then all of a sudden you will have all the answers. You will know what to do. They validate your worth, your value as a perfectly capable person that is able to get out of the situation. And another thing that we seek in others, in relating to others, is something else that you might not have been given, is the reassurance that whatever you are feeling is okay, is what you are feeling is correct. And it's correct just because you are feeling it. So if you think about some situation that maybe someone stood you up and you're angry, and you go to your friend and you say all the situations and you say, am I crazy? Should I be feeling that way? And she says, yeah, of course, that person is a dick. You should be upset. You should stand up for yourself and maybe, tell them or not meet with them anymore. Or perhaps if you are feeling uncertain about your job or some sort of situation that is displeasing to you, and you're like, oh my God, this is such a great job, I'm getting paid so well, and your friend will be there to reflect, to mirror, to validate to you that, but I see you're not feeling it. I see you're unhappy there, right? And you validate your own feeling by simply talking yourself through. Your self-talk is so important. It's like you talk to another person. You gotta talk yourself through. You gotta feel yourself through these situations. That's why when we talk about self-love, we also talk in some ways about reparenting or repartnering. When you take that healthiest aspect of those long-term giving relationships that hold you in their regard and hold their presence and hold their unconditional non-judgment for whatever you are going through, and they say, it's fine. Yeah, you are upset right now. This will pass. And this validation is crucial. This is how I was able to progress so much. And you see how these two ways I explained, these two ways that confuse you, can really make your self-love journey difficult. You might have a really difficult time in deepening relationship to yourself. And by the same token, people who experience all that unconditional love in their early life, they have an easier time of relating to themselves. They have way more confidence, they have way more security, they seek validation from the outside world way less, because they can give it to themselves. They by default are securely attached to themselves. So I will just recap two ways. The first way is confused way of understanding love and confusing attachment with love. And the second way is confusing the feeling of love and what culturally we were taught with the state of being that the love is. So I'm going to wrap it up right now and watch the video recommendations I have here for you. They relate to the topic, and I will see you in one of them.